Hey there. Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive, both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab some espresso, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode 257 is titled A Holistic Approach to Music Making with Emma Shubin.
Hey everyone, this is Corinne Smith here from the William S. Haynes Company. I'm excited to introduce to you an exciting new initiative that is available now to flute teachers. Introducing Club 88 for educators. We know that educators like you provide the inspiration and enthusiasm for the next generation of flutists. We literally couldn't do it without you. So we have made Club 88 for Educators an exclusively inclusive club for flute teachers all around the world. Club 88 for Educators offers a specially tailored selection of perks and benefits we can offer you for spreading your love for all things Haynes. These benefits include discount on Haynes merch, the opportunity to earn Haynes dollars to purchase goods, services, and events, a community forum where you can share ideas, tips, and tricks and stay connected with the Haynes family of educators, free shipping on studio samplers within the continental United States, priority scheduling for Haynes University classes, and invitations to exclusive Club 88 events at festivals and conventions around the world. We believe that teaching should be more rewarding, and with Club 88 for Educators from Haynes, it will be. To find out more information and to sign up to start earning your rewards today, visit our website at wmshaynes.com/Club 88.
Hi, Emma.
How are you doing?
Good. You look beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I went to the gym and was blow drying my hair in the locker room area, being like, this will be fine.
No. You literally look stunning between your glasses and the beautiful yellow photo painting behind you. It's gorgeous. Yeah. So you just moved. Where did you move to?
I just moved to Luxembourg with my family.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Life grows with us. I'm starting my Ph.D. in how music and movement affects instrumental learning in the early years.
Wow.
Super cool. Yeah. We're really excited. I have no idea exactly what comes next, but that's kind of part of the adventure, and it was the right time.
Yeah.
My daughter's 15 months old, and my parents are at the right age where they don't need me yet, but they will soon, and that sort of thing. So we just we're finding the right moment, and here it was.
Yeah. I loved what you said. Say it again if you can remember. You said we grow with life?
Yeah. I think I said, I'm growing with life as we do.
No, I love that. It's so true. And we have these different seasons. And like you said, so beautifully, right? Like my parents need me. They may not need me right now, but later my daughter's at the right age, and you've done so much activity and professional development in your own career and for your students' career when it comes to body movement and everything. And now you see an opportunity to expand even more. And all of these ingredients, right? All of these elements are in the right place at the right time for you to say, and now PhD.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. And what I was going to say was, you and I had chatted through the podcast about 4.5 years ago, and you were featured in episode 87.
Wow.
87. And now we are in the 250 round.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. And just, going back to you and your journey of body movement and where you and I started off in our meager beginnings of Flute 360 with episode 87. And here we are full circle did we even think that we would be where we are? You know, like here you are moving across the world and starting your PhD program. Did you think that that was an option 4 years ago?
I mean, I have always felt like anything is an option.
Okay.
And in this context, no doesn't mean no. No means find another way.
Yeah.
Make more cheese, stop fighting over the same cheese, that kind of a thing. Share.
Yeah.
So I for myself, I mean, the pandemic was a rough moment for so many of us, but also a time of like trying out new things and realizing that our lives could be in lots of different places and that we are guaranteed this moment and maybe not all the others. My family's also Ukrainian, so this has been a very difficult couple years. And so I just, I think realizing that this was a moment that was coming my way and I could say yes or no, but it probably wouldn't come back around in this manner. So we just say yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, this thank you is long overdue. I'm going to take the moment to carve out time to thank you because I've been meaning to say thanks to you for quite some time. And that is the cheese comment you just made. I have been quoting you for the last 4 to 5 years with that cheese comment because of our initiation and us meeting at the Haynes booth at the 2019 NFA convention. You were so gracious and so kind and so loving to come up to me and say, I love what you're doing. I don't know if you remember this, but you pulled me off to the side and you said, we are doing a series. It's going to be on flute and body movement and how we can help flutists on stage express themselves fully and what can movement do for our playing. And you were so wise and intuitive and smart to say, Zara, Kathy Blocky, Erica Boyson, and you listed off all of these wonderful women, and you're like, these are going to be the women in this series. You put down dates and times in your calendar, and you're like, all right, see you in a little bit. And come to find out, I recorded that series with you and those wonderful ladies when I was in Greece.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then you said in the moment, you're like, there's no competition. There's no word such as competition in our industry because there's enough cheese to go around. And I have been saying that for the last 4.5 years of saying, y'all, we're all fighting over this one slice of cheese. But look at the rest of the pie. Look at the rest of the wedge. Look at everything that is around us. There are bountiful blessings all around us if we are courageous and willing enough to look beyond that one little sliver of cheese. And you planted that inside of me. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Emma.
Oh, you're being very, very kind. But I think, this theory of entrainment where if you put clocks ticking next to each other and they're not quite in sync, that they will become in sync over the course of time. I think that we attract people who we feel like we move in sync with them, as it were. And so we all find ways to support each other. And so I think it's a mutual thank you.
Really. Oh, thank you, Emma. Yeah. So then going back to that, I guess that's a good baseline. Like, look at how festivals and conferences can bring people together and amazing friendships can unfold, right? And that was 2019. And here we are in 2023 and a lot has happened. So if you want to, I think that's a great place to start. Can you talk maybe about those changes with the listeners, kind of bring them from episode 87 up until now, and then we can talk about body movement, and I'm kind of curious, like what you've learned in your field these past 4 years, because you are so active and I'm sure you have learned so much, enough for you to say, I want to learn even more and I want to get that PhD.
Oh, it's a lot of questions all in one. So bringing people up to date as to what I'm doing or what I see happening in the world or anything.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Well, I accepted this position at the University of Luxembourg. My promoter is a wonderful musician and educator named Luc Nigis. He is at the forefront of this idea that incorporating movement in the learning of the instrument from the very beginning is instrumental in perhaps how we learn and grow as a musician, and that they shouldn't necessarily be separated, but they should be incorporated together. Any Alexander technique teacher will tell you, well, you move to breathe and you move to live. And so they're not separate. Any Dalcrozian, any person who studies Dalcroze rhythmics, which is this method of teaching music through movement that I have been studying and been a student of and a teacher of for quite some time in my life, will talk all about how becoming a more expressive musician and more in touch with music is all about connecting to your first instrument, which is your body, and understanding music with the whole. I am really excited to explore more about what that means in the early years of learning, because we know that there's this playful, imaginative, creative place that we all come from. And that kind of translates into this amazing connection and deep caring of music that then we want to translate to our audiences. And I'm sure that I said the last time we were together that, one of the reasons I ask my students to move and I ask myself to move is so that I can stand on stage and from this place of groundedness and stillness, move my audience through my music. And so it's another tool. And so to me, it's not that I just want to preach to the choir or to prove the things I already know or live in my echo chamber of like, oh yeah, I see that this is true. And now look, here's the research to back it up. But I think that it could be very important to education on a whole if we start to actually talk about what is happening when we use movement as a tool and through work with putting sensors on athletes. We know that there's an efficiency and what we can call this flow state that can happen in movement that says, yes, you have learned and you have mastered. And there's a correlation there between being athletes of tiny muscles, which us musicians are, and not just that, but that we have a connection to our emotive world and what we wish to say through our music that directly links to our movement. And yes, some of it is technical, but a lot of it also comes from a wish to express. And we're always kind of playing this juggling and balancing act between how we can build the right skills to be as expressive and beautiful as we want to be. One of my favorite flutists, Miss Lorna McGee, often talks about technique as kinesthetic memory and coordination. And I think that one of the things is as we grow more coordinated, we are more free then to be our expressive musical selves. I am very interested in how most of us engage with our music from this place of learning with our whole self and then translating it through this metal pipe in our case, which is a beautiful and expensive and exquisite piece of art in itself, but it's without life until we use our air to create sound with it and to ignite something. And that's what connects us, I think, to our audiences, because whether or not they know it, just like us, they're breathing. And so there's maybe that whole tag back to this idea of entrainment, that in a space, we all want to be moving and working together on some level. And although in these times we can talk about how there's a lot of conflict in our world, I still think that if we're putting forth something that is really true from ourselves and really connected to our breath and to this message that we're wanting to give through our music, that we can bring a whole audience with us on this amazing journey. We need the right instruments. We need the tools in our own body. We need a great flute. We need wonderful colleagues and mentors and people to work with. And I think that's that piece of wanting more cheese and to create more cheese and more opportunities. For me, there's been a few opportunities to think about whether or not I'd want to go do a performance degree or to go and do this kind of more research-based opportunity. And, I have a good part of myself that's an idealist and would love to shift how we learn and how we teach on a larger scale. And so there's the 25-year and the 30-year wish of mine. And then there's some of the immediate stuff, which is that when this call came out for this PhD and my promoter gave me a call and said, hey, I think this would be really great. We could do some wonderful things. I looked at it and I thought, wow, sounds like it was written for me. And my dear sweetheart of a husband looked at me and he said, well, you'd be silly not to do this. As I was holding my 3-month-old daughter and thinking, I might be silly either way, but here we go. Let's give it a try. and see what happens. And I think, we think that, we admire our mentors for being so brave and courageous and hardworking, or at least I do.
Mm.
And every single one of my mentors would say, I had great teachers and colleagues and friends, and I felt supported.
Mm.
So I feel very lucky in our flute community that I feel supported, and that I really, at this moment, I want to learn the next steps to give back. And of course, some part of myself is feeling pretty geeky. I get to research about the best kind of sensors to put on kiddos and adults. We're not just going to right now my PhD is focusing on early years, but I know that in order for me to know what I'm looking at, I also get to ask my colleagues and friends if they wouldn't mind helping me out to gather some baseline data and learn about how they move and what they're doing while they're playing. And so I'm just very excited to open a door into a world that, is so important to what we do as musicians on a whole, and could really support our world as flutists who, we engage with our instrument in a really unique way. No other instrument is a flow-based instrument the way the flute is. And we all know that. We don't have something covering our mouth while we play. We don't put something in our mouth when we play, in the woodwind kind of brass family. And so we're unique, and we have a really unique voice, and we love it. That's why we came and found that beautiful shiny flute to start with. But I think that it could really support discoveries beyond our world, which I'm very excited about.
Oh my goodness, that was so eloquent. And thank you for bringing us up to speed with how you envision music making. And you did such a great job of kind of taking 10 steps back and looking at everything, your studies, your research, what drives you from this bird's eye view, very holistic. And just, I loved it. There's so many rabbit holes that I could go down with you, Emma. I don't even know where to begin, but the early stages, the early years, that kind of really tickled my fancy, because as an aunt now, I wasn't an aunt 4 years ago, but as an aunt now, I get to see how my niece moves to music in a very natural way. And it's really cool for me as a music educator to see that in such a very innocent form. She's not taught music yet in the sense of training and taking music classes. She loves listening to my husband, her uncle, play guitar. And she'll just jam out and do some air guitar, and as he's playing the real instrument, and she's just grooving and moving her hips and nodding her head up and down. And to see that as a music educator, it's such a great reminder how music and movement is so innate in our being. And maybe, I don't know, you know this way better than I do, but over time, maybe because of the formal training, because of us going through conservatories and schools, maybe perhaps that sense, that innateness gets lost, because maybe we get lost in all the details and we forget the why. Maybe we forget how music can move us on this very intuitive level. And so you kind of hinted at that a little bit about how you said the 25-year goal, the 30-year goal is to maybe bring this into the system at the forefront and let it be more embedded in our training from the get-go. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think that, we talk about formal learning and informal learning, and this idea of being in an experience, immersed in an experience. And when we're working with little ones, we're giving them so much of this language of music right directly into their bodies, from their families and their communities to them. And that's such an important piece of really connecting to music and having something to say. I think some of the people who we are the most moved by in their performances, we might ask them about their background, and there's something about them really being immersed in music. And so there's many amazing programs out there. I not only has Dalcroze inspired amazing pedagogy across the world, but there's something called Music Together for little babies up through 4 years old with their caregivers. An example among many of wonderful programs that are available out there. And I myself have taught those classes, and it is really amazing to see what is possible at this age. And then starting in early years, we know that there's a wealth of pedagogy for young kiddos, whether it's Suzuki flute or other types of methods. And, I know that this podcast has gotten a chance to talk to so many master teachers. But yes, for me, this returning back to what moves us and the idea that our first instrument is our body, I think about those moments in master classes where almost always the transformation was never about something that was esoteric or complicated. It was always about returning to some basic fundamental connection and coordination in my body with what my ear wished for, what I felt the music needed me to accomplish, and then how I translated that through my flute through the air. And to me, that's like this full circle. So I often think of my own learning as like starting at the very beginning of something. You're really close to a source of something like, oh, I was really excited to learn. And here I am, and I showed up to do it. And then we kind of get to the business of learning. And as we get into kind of the minutia that you're talking about, we kind of get far away from this reason why we started. And I think it's a pretty natural progression. So you go on and you work really hard and you end up achieving many beautiful things, but then you might feel kind of far from the reason why you started. And so then, in a sense, it's not that you turn the ship around, but you start to come back around to what really sparks you. And I still have these memories. We're going to be honoring Wib this year at NFA. And I have memories of being his assistant at the Pender Island Flute Retreat and helping Gwen Klassen run this beautiful festival. And Lorna McGee is one of the artists, and Wib is there. And Wib forever was outside doing something wild, making the most bizarre sounds on his instrument. And, one day I said, hey, Wib, we're about to start class. We need you to come in. He says, but I've almost got it. And I asked him what he was working on. He says, I'm just trying to work on how I hear the overtones in my sound. And he was out there sounding like a dying cow on his flute. And it was the most fantastic lesson of this idea of like really deep listening and really active listening, that we never stop learning, and this quality of being forever curious. And I think of so many of my mentors. Robert Willoughby was another one who I'd go to the practice room next to his and try and kind of sneak in to start my lesson a few minutes early, 8 a.m. Friday morning. I'd knock on the door at 7:55 because I wanted a couple more minutes. And he'd be like, oh, no, I'm sorry. I need 5 more minutes. I'm still practicing. And, at the age of 84 at the time, he was in there working on his Daphnis and his Afternoon of a Faun, and just the most beautiful curiosity in every note. And so to me, this history that we take through our instruments and then we marry with the tools of our flute. So, I have to mention the great flute maker that I have the honor of representing me, Haynes, like this idea and connection to the sound of what it is to be a flute player. And then the idea of exploring whole new horizons, and at any cost, in a certain sense, like you're going to make the most wild sounds and try things that seem a little out of the box. I know that it's not mainstream to talk about moving with your instrument, to say, put down your instrument and let's work on how you understand this music in your body so that when you come back to your instrument, it'll be better. That might seem like a very far way to go to return to the source of something that you really want to express. But I think that sometimes we take this journey to discover something that's really profound in our own playing and our own progression as a musician. I grew up as part of an art guild in upstate New York. Fun fact, it's true. And above the kitchen spices, there was this saying that said, sometimes one must travel far to discover what is near. And I think these times, as we all have a story from the last 5 years, everybody you speak to has a story. I think we feel closer to that truth of like, oh, I've really taken a journey to arrive at this place.
Oh, I love that. Oh my goodness, Emma, you need your own podcast. I kid you not.
I know who I need to talk to learn all the things and be inspired.
I know somebody.
What an amazing
Yeah.
example and inspiration.
Oh.
So,
Oh my
yeah.
goodness. Oh my goodness. No, the reason I say that is because, again, like, you beautifully lay out these ideas in such an eloquent way. And you, speaking of being storytellers, oh my goodness, you just weave this beautiful like tapestry together to form this gorgeous story on this tapestry. And man, I am like hooked and on your ride of just like, you bring me along this ride. And I can see everything. I can see every detail, and you just lay it out so beautifully. And so thank you for that. Are you looking for the perfect flute or piccolo to take your music to the next level? Look no further than the Carolyn Nesbaum Music Company in Plano, Texas. Since 1996, we've been the go-to source for flutists of all levels, with an unrivaled selection of flutes, piccolos, low flutes, and head joints from dozens of top makers. But we're more than just a music store. We're your complete resource for everything flute related, with sheet music, instrumental accessories, teaching resources, and health information all under one roof. And our in-house staff of experts is always ready to help you find exactly what you need to achieve your musical goals. At the Carolyn Nesbaum Music Company, we're committed to excellence in all aspects of our business, from our top quality products to our friendly personalized service. And with an in-house repair staff certified in all major brands, you can trust us to keep your instruments in top condition for years to come. Follow us on social media to stay up to date on the latest news and events, and visit our website at fluteforyou.com to shop our extensive selection of flutes, piccolos, and more. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned pro, the Carolyn Nesbaum Music Company is your one-stop flute shop. Going back to what you said at the beginning of the hour, you said, we kind of attract similar people with similar passions and things like that. This is something, what you just described is something I have been thinking about quite a lot this past year in serving my students, because kind of like what you said, this journey of learning, like we have this why, we have these origin stories, we get into the minutia of all these details. Maybe we forget our home base, but then we circle back to, the baseline, and we're like, that's what podcasting has done for me. Because even before I was a flutist, I don't know if you remember this, but I was a ballerina, and I expressed myself through my body. And I put that dance and that art on the shelf when I went to go and pick up my flute, and I compartmentalized those lives. I separated it. And when I went to the flute, yes, I found that I could express myself, but not fully like I did when I was a ballerina. And because I felt like I couldn't move on stage, I felt like I had to be, more staged or more poised, right? And because I wasn't tapping into that baseline of who Heidi was and how I expressed myself initially in those formative years, I had a lot of performance anxiety because I felt like I had to be somebody else. And then once I realized, oh my goodness, I can incorporate both things in a sense of what would this feel like in my body as I'm expressing these musical ideas through my flutes, and then kind of coming to that realization around the time-ish when you and I first talked. And then fast forward, podcasting taught me even further, when I watch back these videos through YouTube, or when I watch myself back through these remote presentations, podcasting has taught me you are a storyteller. We are all storytellers. And I noticed through these videos how much I move my hands, how much I move my body. And again, in the early stages of podcasting, I was sitting on my hands and thinking I had to be real poised and suit and tie. And now I'm showing up in sweatshirts and, berets and things like that, because this is what makes me comfortable. And this is how I can express myself. If I'm not comfortable, I can't express myself fully. And noticing when I was sitting on my hands and thinking I had to be all poised, I wasn't having fun. I wasn't enjoying it. And why not? Because I was kind of suppressing that talker Heidi, that storyteller Heidi, who really wanted to use her body, use her hands in order to convey a message to my listeners and to my guests. And the more I let that be free and the more I allowed myself to truly be who I needed to be in my most genuine and vulnerable way, that's when podcasting became more fun. That's when I was able to really fully express myself. And then when I came to my flute, I mean, literally, I didn't know where it was coming from initially, but then realizing like, oh my goodness, it's my podcasting world and the lessons I've learned from this digital platform. I was bringing it into my performances, and those performances, like some of the most high pressure performances, like in Greece, in Romania, in Bulgaria during that season when I first interviewed you, that would have been a time normally where I would have like sunk under pressure. But if anything, my husband noticed that I was flourishing, like, and they were like some of the best performances ever. And I attribute that to my podcasting growth, which helped my performance growth because I learned how to be my most authentic, vulnerable self on stage in the most hidiness form that I possibly could because of movement, because of breath, because of everything you're talking about. And it was this aha moment like, oh my goodness. And so now, full circle, my point to all of that was these lessons that I'm learning through podcasting, I'm conveying to my students, and and that's why I'm so gung-ho about, hey, musicians, you should start a podcast, right? It's an untapped market. And people hear the business side of things of why I'm trying to get them into the space. And yes, that is true. But it's even deeper than that. If they can experience it for themselves, their self-awareness gets boosted and they realize like, oh, this is how I sound when I talk. Oh, this is how I move when I talk. Oh, these are my ideas and they are valid. And I have opinions and I have a voice. So that when you bring that over into your flute world, that movement, that expression, everything you're talking about, then it's this like aha moment and you're more confident on stage. You're having more fun on stage. You get to really express yourself fully because you did that deep inner work on your main instrument, which is you. And then that silver, beautiful, expensive tubing that's put on your face, that's the amplification of what's been done and the work that's been done here on your first instrument, which is you.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And I think it's so well said. I think the little nonprofit that I helped found and was the executive director for 12 years of, and now I've shifted my role to make some more space. I'm now the artistic director. I'm not sure if those titles matter in the long run, but the main wish of that was not only to give a place for the students to explore kind of this idea of multimodal learning. What does it mean when you cross over those compartments that we often are trained to make? This is where my music life lives. This is where my movement life lives. This is where my cognitive life lives. And what happens when we try and access all of those areas in our learning? It was for the students, but it was also for the people working there, and to make space for these wonderful musicians and educators and movers. And I mean, we have wonderful artists too, visual artists who work with us. So there's like this space where they don't have to just be, I don't have to just be Emma the flutist or Emma the Dalcrozian or Emma working on her Ph.D., but I can find a place where all these parts of myself exist and are valued. I think we want to feel comfortable to be ourselves and to not have to feel like we're hiding some part of ourselves. And of course, there comes with that some innate like cacophony of all the different things that we put in the pot. And then as we get a little more comfortable moving, I think, between these different worlds, where we can learn how to make space for all these parts of ourselves too, and to be okay with that. That it's true. I am not an expert at certain areas of things that I feel really, really passionate about. And that's why I want to learn more, right? And it's okay to explore combining these things and learn something new the way that you've shown the way a little bit here of like, oh, you love telling this story. What happens if we make this a thing where we actually get together with my colleagues and my friends and my people who I'm inspired by and people I want to learn more from, and we have a conversation. I mean, this is innovation, And we do it through our music telling, our storytelling as well. But I think this is the same craft. And as a musician, I'm always looking for the tool where I can be more free, whether it's calling. I have an amazing mentor, Alexander technique teacher, Gabriela Minas-Brandes, who lives up in Vancouver. And, when I need help, I can call her and say, look, I'm looking for this. I need some more support here. And so in a sense, I always wish that we all feel comfortable enough to call our colleagues and our friends and our teachers and our students and say, hey, I need support in this way. What can we do together to make something even more than the sum of its parts? That there's this something greater that can happen. So I think I just am really grateful for the opportunity to come and chat with you a little bit about how things have been going.
Yeah, that's amazing. So to pick your brain a little bit, I can hear the 360 asking me through like a text or a DM saying, hey, Heidi, like this is a pain point of mine in my performance world. Can you help me? And so I'm going to pick your brain with this hurdle. And that is, I hear quite often from 360ers that they feel like they are awkward on stage. Like when they perform, they feel like they don't have the right footing or they don't know if this movement or that movement is deemed acceptable, or, they just want to feel more comfortable in their own skin as they are pouring their heart out into their instrument and making that connection with the audience member. Of course, that is a loaded question because there's a lot of variables. There's everybody is a unique individual, but I'm sure you've heard something along those lines that are very similar from your neck of the woods. How would you help that 360er with this pain point?
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Of course, my brain loves to go in 40 directions at once. So I'm going to try and walk it through. If I was talking to somebody who was of the age that they were listening to our podcast, or DMing you, and were cognizant of their own self-consciousness, because I think there's a certain age where you know that you don't feel comfortable, and that's quite early. And then there's a certain age where you are aware that you feel uncomfortable and you want to do something about it. And of course, all of us teachers wish to set up our students so they never feel that pain, right? We want them to feel comfortable from the beginning. And so I think discomfort comes from not knowing. And so one of the reasons why you might explore that very same piece of music, stepping the beat while you play it, for example, is that that's what we call a multitasking to do. Like, I am going to step the beat while I play these beautiful phrases over that beat. That's a huge event for my body to coordinate. If I can do that, it is true that standing still and playing it will be different. In fact, it'll probably feel simpler because it is simpler in a very basic mechanics to stand on stage and not have to perform the task of stepping the beat. So if you wanted like a quick and dirty, like give something a try stepping the beat. But then if you wanted to say, but that's, we've heard about marching band, or we've experienced marching band. Is that what you mean? I did that in marching band. That was not as musical or helpful or something. If that's the world you came from, I didn't come from that world, but I sure work with some students who are in that world. And bizarrely, sometimes that can be disconnected from expression. And so the question is how you move. You don't always have to move forwards. You don't always have to move back. You don't always have to step right and then left. You can cross, you can turn, you can explore space, you can sit and you can stand, you can lean against a wall. There's all these different ways that with your instrument, you can be engaged with your music and get to know your body differently, because that's how you're making the sound. And that's really all that I'm saying is what is possible for you to explore the container with which you create this amazing sound. Because the more ways that you're comfortable doing that, the more that you feel like you own the space that you perform in. And that's just one slice. And I'm sure that somebody out there is going to be like, well, that's ridiculous, Emma. So I would say that that's a very kinesthetic prescription.
Okay.
Try something out, to go out there and say, okay, I'm going to do what she said. And ooh, the beat is too fast. So maybe try the half note or whatever the multiple of the beat is for your particular piece, dotted half, etc. The whole measure. Maybe it's that you step on the ball of your foot. So you're actually looking at how you move. So it's not just marching kind of without a connection between what we call your head and your tail in the movement world, the head-tail connection. That's one idea. So I would say that that's a kind of a kinesthetic exercise of what are the creative ways I can engage my whole self in something that is connected to the music I'm playing while I'm playing that music. So I'm practicing this multitasking skill. Pianists, of course, have to do this a lot. One hand does one thing, one hand does the other. We already do that a lot. Our air does one thing, our fingers do a different thing, our tongue might do something else, right? We're already working on this multitasking in many ways, but this is just another idea. The other thing that I might say is this idea that's not new, but we don't talk about it a lot, which is this visualization of the whole. So performing doesn't start on the stage. It starts at the very beginning of how we approach a piece of music. If you don't want to make mistakes, then we don't practice in a way that would bring mistakes into our playing. So that means you don't play it in a way that you can't. You always play it in a way that you can. So if that means the tempo is less, if it means the chunk is shorter, that's some basic practicing chunking and technique that is well documented in brain science research, and we hear flute players talk about it all the time. But I heard Itzhak Perlman in one of his videos from his office talking about, if you want to forget slowly, practice slowly. If you want to forget quickly, practice quickly. I'm paraphrasing, but I loved that idea. And so somebody was asking about memorization and how he mastered something. And so he was talking about slow practice and its importance. But then I also have found a lot of comfort and a lot of help with rehearsing the performance in many, many ways. And the dress rehearsal is simply not the right time to be rehearsing the performance, because traditionally a dress rehearsal is the day before or the week before. I think you start rehearsing the minute you start working on a piece of music. So what does it feel like to walk and stand in front of your stand and play? If you're not going to be using a stand, what does it feel like to walk and play to a room full of chairs or a room full of stuffed animals or a room full of your pets or your favorite houseplant that you can perform to? What does that feel like? But the visualization piece of where I actually might lay in bed and walk through a whole performance, I'm doing for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. I see myself get dressed for the performance. I see myself warm up. I see myself put on the pair of shoes I'm going to wear. I see myself walk out on stage. I feel that music and that whole performance in my whole self the way I want it to be. Because just like watching sports, your brain doesn't know the difference. Your body doesn't know the difference. And I think this is fascinating for those of your listeners who may know or may not, but one of the reasons why we love watching little people run around on screens and kick or throw balls, which is kind of ridiculous if you think about it, like we as a species are very engaged by that, is our brain doesn't know that we're not doing it. Our brain actually feels like we are performing. It feels like we are engaging in the sport activity. That's why we will sit there for 4 to 6 hours and watch a game and be entertained watching tiny digital representations of people run around on a screen. I mean,
shut up.
Right? So I think that's amazing. And I use that for myself a lot. So your brain doesn't know you're not performing. When you go and practice the most beautiful performance where you are relaxed and you are aware and you are prepared for all the things that will happen the way you planned them to, will not happen the way you planned them to, when you have this kind of 360 way of, sorry, I had to get it in there, this 360 scope of just this really amazing kind of bat ears or elephant ears of I am really aware of how all the possibilities are available to me in this performance. And I practice running through that in my mind every day. And for me, I really like to be in a place where I'm more relaxed than other places. I tend to run a little high octane. So This is usually an activity where I'm in active rest or laying in bed, and I'm walking through that whole process. It's like I've done it all those times, because to my brain, I sure have, just like watching that sporting event. I'm there in the action doing the thing, and that's why it's exciting. And so I can also notice, if I really do this, I can also notice where I'm still not comfortable in a piece or what I'm scared of. And so then that's your job the next day, is to get up, and I have to tip my hat to Sharon Sparrow for the term a naughty list. So she always puts the things that she is not where she wants them to be on her naughty list. And so that, for me, it's a really visceral feeling, like I feel a little tight in my chest about this passage. And it's when I'm hearing it in my ear or thinking about it in my inner ear and imagining performing it, if I feel my whole body turtle, like get tighter and want to pull in, I know that it needs
That's a sign.
Yeah. So I'm looking for those signs, and I'm also looking to build this feeling of expansiveness and generosity, and the knowledge that, I mean, even in a room full of flute players, 97% of the people there are not able to do what you're doing, right? They haven't learned that piece the way you have. They haven't walked in your shoes. And so you are giving a gift to them that, maybe on the more extreme side, it gets in the way of the music, and it gets in the way of sharing something and being generous if you are so concerned with whether or not you did it the way that you think that they think it should go.
Right.
Kind of set that aside and really play like your life depends on it, but in this generous way of like, I am engaging with this music, and this is what I have to offer right now. Because as you were saying, at the end of the day, it's people hear us. They don't hear the notes that you played or didn't play. They hear you. And so if you are feeling engaged and excited and eager to share something, that's exactly how they'll feel. If you're feeling terrified, it's part of the process, but also part of the process is training yourself to let go of that. And as somebody who had pretty debilitating nerves and stage fright, I can say that when I engage with my whole self in the learning of a piece, it's like building this really large ledge on the wall of learning something. I've got tons of room up there to feel comfortable. I can make it to the next point in my learning. I've got lots of space. Whereas before, when I just learned it kind of like you play until you make a mistake and then you backtrack and try and fix it, that type of practicing, I always felt like I was walking a very thin tightrope.
Yes.
Very thin ledge. And so my whole now approach to practicing is how many ways can I know something? Can I know it in my body? Can I know it in my mind? Can I know it in my ears? Can I know it this way? Can I know it that way? So that I feel like I've created a really wide, very comfortable ledge, and I'm having a party up there, and I'm really enjoying the process. And so practicing is less of a chore and more of this exploration. And it's a whole lot of fun to get to know a piece that well. And I think that I used to leave a lot more to chance when I was younger. I didn't think about practicing really being about, I love the name of your podcast at this moment. I always have. But now this idea of this 360 approach to getting to know a piece of music and coming in from all the different doorways.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I loved what you said about like knowing the piece on these different levels, and you're building out that really beautiful, well-established ledge, right? Because then the day of the performance, of the recital or the concert, if something were to go awry, if there was a mistake to happen, it's not going to, sending you, running off the stage in a crying fit. Because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You've built out that ledge. You've done the work. You know it, how it sounds, how it feels, how it looks, how everything that you just described, right? So if it's going to happen, if that mistake is going to happen in the moment, you're not going to bat an eye. You're just going to go about the rest of your playing, enjoy yourself because you're in the present. You've done the work, you're here, you're giving the best of yourself in that moment in time, and you're so much in your element, so much in your zone sharing yourself with your audience, that mistake is not going to deter you.
And if it doesn't deter you, it won't deter them. And stuff
Yeah.
happens. I mean, every great performer will tell you they all make the mistakes. It's how they handle the mistakes that
Yes.
leads to the next moment and to our memory of that beautiful performance that to us might have been like without a blemish. And to them,
Yes.
they're very aware of all the different things that happened, but it's part of the journey. And that's the fun of it, actually, is that you don't know all the answers when you walk out on stage.
Hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that leaves space for you to be this expressive, beautiful artist. I loved what you said about going back to, this idea of these different ways I know. And to me, there's this, I can learn kinesthetically, I can learn cognitively, and I can learn kind of emotionally. But in the world of music, I feel like that has a lot to do with my ear, my whole instrument in my body, and then my eyes and how my eyes translate what I've seen on the page. And so I continually am working through this kind of triangle. In the Suzuki world, we talk about the parent, teacher, and the student as a triangle, but I think the triangle also exists for ourself to our instrument, how my body understands it, how my mind understands it, and how I hear it and feel it, because I think our hearing is really connected to how we feel our music. And so we keep working on all of three sides of that triangle. And so
Yeah.
finding doorways in is just, it's such the joy of discovery and of mastering something.
Hmm.
And so then you're welcoming your audience on that journey with you. And
Yeah.
so the hope is that by the time you get to the performance, you get to just help welcome them into this beautiful exploration with you. Now we all of us know that feeling. There's always that passage, and there's always that opportunity where somebody says, "Hey, will you come and play?" And you say yes. And you realize, ooh, I
Ooh.
don't have enough time. I don't have enough time for this to be the world's most perfect preparation. And so I think us flute players, I think I'm in a room of flute
Mm.
players here, I can say we tend to, be a little perfectionist and a fairly high strung.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the answer is that we go and talk to our low string playing friends or our low brass playing. I don't know what the exact answer is, but I will
Mm.
say that the more we continue on this exploration, and even when, we're entering the scene of like, somebody says, come play this great concert with me in 2 days, we can still get on the train of like, I'm going to make great music at the level I'm prepared at, and I'm going to find the way to engage with this music and learn how to enjoy this process and figure out, what kind of adventure and journey I need to traverse between now and when I walk out on stage so that I feel great about this. And I think as we get older, we get also a little bit better about being like, oh, I can say yes to this. And maybe I'll say, oh, I'd love to do that
Mm.
next month to this opportunity. But I think, when you're really young and excited to do all the things and we say yes, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I still say yes to all the things because I am so excited to experience the music with my colleagues and my friends, and I want to share that with people, that this is a transformative language that we're part of. We're creating something in the moment, and this is one of the very few art forms where we're actively doing something now, processing what just happened prior, and then planning for what comes ahead. That's what
Mm.
keeps us young,
Yeah. No, thank you for that advice. That was wonderfully said. Thank you so much. And if there's anybody who is interested in your work and they want to follow up with you post episode launch, where can they go?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have a website that has sometimes been updated, emmashubin.com. But I am now a PhD candidate at the University of Luxembourg. Thank you to the university. I'm a Haynes performing artist, ambassador clinician artist, pardon me. And you can find my information there as well. Or you can go to the nonprofit I helped found, the website www.integralsteps.org. And those are all places where you can see things that are happening. Social media, yes, I have a little catching up to do post move. And so there'll be some stuff happening there. But also come to Phoenix this summer and let's hang out. I'll be there. And I know you'll be there. And it would be really lovely. Just come and find me and ask me questions. You can also email me, emma.shubin@gmail.com. Send me a carrier pigeon. Send me a text, Facebook message. All those things. Absolutely. Any way that you can find me, if you've got questions, I'm always happy to answer and engage in wonderful dialogue. So thank you so much for having me, Heidi.
Oh, thank you, Emma, for coming. And I will see you at NFA. I will be there, and I will have to grab you off to the side and say, coffee, lunch date, let's go.
There's the Youth Flute Day is happening on Saturday.
Okay.
On that very same day. So if you have younger listeners, please come to the Youth Flute Day. It's going to be amazing.
Nice.
There's also a big feature of Suzuki flutes throughout the ages happening. There's like a booth exhibit. There's stuff happening with Haynes, of course, because they're generously sponsoring the class I'll be doing at 12 that day with the wonderful Wendy Stern. We'll be looking at Carnival of Venice, so you don't want to miss that. And then Sunday, of course, our closing gala ceremonies. There'll be some feature of a lot of wonderful young players from the very young to the almost adult on the closing gala concert. So if that's something that's interesting to people, we'll be playing an arrangement of Mary in the New World that Noelle Perrin arranged. And so if there are young flutists out there who still want to join us, I don't think it's too late yet. So hurry and let us know. But yeah, there's so many great ways to be in touch with all of us. And Heidi, I just am so inspired by all that you do for our community. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Emma. That means the world to me. Thank you. And we will be in touch. I will let you know when this podcast airs. But thank you so much for your time and your generosity. I always learn so much from you. And if there's anything very specific, like a specific link or anything that you want to drop in the show notes, let me know. But I will put all the things that you just listed in the show notes. So that way for you 360 listener out there, it's easy peasy. You can navigate to everything Emma just listed off. And many blessings to you and to your new journey with this PhD degree. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful evening. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Flute 360 podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review through your favorite podcast app, such as Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, among others. Thank you. Let's talk about flute.